4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to another episode of Corridor Digital Podcast. Jake knows 2 chords and he might know 3. Or maybe it's just an augmented version of the same thing.
Nice.
All right,
Dude,
guys.
it's like a sitcom intro, man.
I know.
We can sing and play at the same time.
It's taken me years, and I'm not good at it, but I can do it. I will say I can do it.
Well, judging by how you're The Rock, I mean, I'd say you can do it
Wren,
well.
Thanks for pointing that out. Because I don't know if you guys watch Corridor Crew. Hopefully you do. But I'm The Rock, so I don't know what else to say. I mean, we got Tom Cruise in the house.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Cruise.
Yeah, Nico's Tom Cruise. Wren, have you won a title yet? Silence.
Also, okay, real quick, I almost won the Indiana Jones one, but why was it Indiana Jones and not Harrison Ford?
Because Indiana Jones is who we'd all like Harrison Ford to be.
That literally just occurred to me that like we have all these actual celebrities and then a fictional character played by a celebrity.
You know, I don't know. I don't think we think about it that hard. It's more just like, hey, this could be fun.
It's a tower of cards, man, and you're just gonna knock it all down.
I know. He's unveiled the flaw in our content strategy.
YouTube's gonna shut down the channel now that they know.
Yeah. Oh no.
Hey, we got a big announcement, don't we?
Yeah. So, guys, I don't know if you've been following. I don't know. I'm just gonna say I don't know before everything. No. You may not be following what's going on corridordigital.com, but if you are and you're a website member, we've got exciting news. Crew Cuts has been greenlit.
Woo!
That's right.
The vlogs are back, baby.
That's right. The vlogs are BACK.
They are back.
Yes. So what happened was we said, hey, we've got a whole slate of shows that we could possibly make. We put Crew Cuts out there and we said, you know what? We'd like to make this one. Here's a low point goal. Let's get it going. And what? It hasn't even been a week since we've announced the Greenlight feature. And today the Crew Cuts show has been funded. So by the time this podcast comes out, there may be already the first episode. So if you guys are interested on Corridor Digital, we're going for it. On corridordigital.com, there's a new show.
This is cool. Man, looking at these other shows too, it's like Functional Filmmaking's got a chunk taken out of it already. Son of a Dungeon's got a chunk taken out of it already.
Yeah.
Tactical Reloads, though, that one's going to take a while. That's an ambitious show.
Yeah, it's going to take a while, but when it happens, it'll be worth every penny. Yeah, no, Functional Filmmaking is slightly ahead of Son of a Dungeon in terms of percentage towards completion. And that's going to be another fun one to make. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, this is great. The website's looking so slick these days. Dude, the background is the motion tracking triangles.
You like that? You like that?
Classy.
That is
very classy.
We added that in. Just a little, a little visual distinction.
I might finally have a new homepage instead of the default like Mozilla Firefox homepage.
You're using Firefox, Nico?
Yeah, I got tired of how much memory Chrome is taking up these days. And Google, I gotta say that not for being a giant mega corporation, they could be a lot worse. But kind of like not selling my data all the time.
Okay.
So then again, it's like you can Google my name and there's like, I'm on the internet. People know who I am.
No, see, Nico, we don't.
People know who I am.
Here, let me give you the Zuckerberg response. Facebook doesn't actually sell your data. What we do is we take all of the data and then we tell you what the data is, but we don't actually sell it to you. We still own it. You just buy access to it, and then we tell you what it is.
Right. We give you a summary of the data.
Yeah. So it's not selling your information, right?
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, Mark. Thanks. Thanks for
Yeah.
that.
So
Thank you, Marky Mark.
So, thanks, Mark Wahlberg. Yeah, so it's really cool that the Crew Cuts has been greenlit, and it's super exciting to have like a show that's for corridordigital.com for all the people that wanted to see the vlogs back and wanted to support us and make it happen in a site where we can do it without having to worry about the algorithm. We can now support it on corridordigital.com. And if you're listening to this and you're not a member, consider going over there and subscribing.
Within a week.
Within a week.
Yeah, I can't. I thought it would take at least a week, maybe
It's
two.
a little scary how fast it happened.
It is because that's very intimidating. Like once we put these shows out there, as soon as they get made,
Then we have to make them.
we got work to do, boys.
Yeah. No, but Daniel's doing an amazing job so far with putting the stuff together.
Yeah, no. So another special announcement on the Crew channel will happen on Friday this week.
Ooh.
Yes. So stay tuned for that.
All right.
But
I want to kick things off for the first topic of conversation here, if you don't mind, Jake.
go for it.
All right.
Let's do it.
Wren,
why did you cut your hair?
No, that's not it.
It was providing too much drag.
Wait, Drag, you were trying to go fast recently? That's such a bad intro. Oh my God. Okay, let me try this again. I'm going to hype
There
this up
was
a little bit better.
one event recently.
So everybody probably already knows this listening to the podcast, but you know what? Who doesn't like a good hype moment? So here we go. All right. Wren is probably one of the best one-wheelers I know. He is very fast, faster than the entire group. And recently, Future Motion held a Race for the Rail, which is their World Championship one-wheel race. And they picked 10 people to go, and they left 3 slots open as wild cards. And for some reason, they didn't pick Wren for the first 10 people to go. And Wren's like, you know what? I can make a video and submit it and get that wild card slot because it's a popularity vote. And so, Wren does that. And, all of us listening on this podcast are fans of Wren. And so needless to say, Wren blows out the competition with the vote by 7,000 votes?
Yeah, it was a little embarrassing.
So Wren gets picked for the empty slot, for the wild card slot. And here's the thing, everybody's doubting him, right? Wren just got in because he's got a YouTube following, just because he's popular. Can he actually hang with the big boys?
That is exactly why I got in.
Yeah.
He's just a dude rancher, man.
So Wren's got a chip on his shoulder. He's got something to prove. And thus, let's enter day one. Wren, tell us the story of Race for the Rail.
Okay, well, I mean, just to kind of add on to your little backstory there, it's you're absolutely right. So what they actually invited 9 people. Well, originally it was just 7 people. Then they added 2 additional women. And then they had 3 additional wildcard spots that they left up to the community. And I don't think they exactly anticipated that I would want to join on this because I don't think anyone in the one-wheel community took me seriously, including Future Motion themselves. They knew that I was this popular YouTuber who made YouTube videos with the one wheel, but beyond that, they didn't think I had any skill. They didn't think I had any speed, other than my friends here in LA that I ride with, who I can keep up with. Like Brendan and Jamie, who were the other 2 wildcard members. Brendan, the guy who went on to win the entire race, I've ridden with for a couple years now.
A wild card won the entire race?
Yeah.
Wow.
Dang, son.
Yeah. So I don't know how much you know about any of this stuff.
No, I don't.
And
Yeah, I
that's
don't
the
know.
end of the story.
And the end. Moving on. But
Keep going.
Yeah, so it was cool that both of my friends here in LA were able to join us on the wild card. So they narrowed down everyone. Okay, everyone got to submit a little video. It had to show speed, skill, and heart. And I just made a silly video of me trying to drink tea out of a teacup going down a really rough road on a trail. I was like, that shows all of those skills, right? Speed and skill while not spilling my water. In the end, it kind of just looked like a silly goof, but hey, you know what? I got in. So we all show up. We all had to first submit a negative COVID test within a few days.
Where did you go? You said you all showed up. Where did you show up?
Yes. So we went to Utah, this town just outside of Huntsville, Utah. It's like an hour north of Salt Lake City. We're all going to be competing on this ski resort called Snow Basin. And man, the Future Motion team was super secretive about everything. In fact, so much so that they're we're not even going to tell you the location of the race until 2 days before you show up. And so 2 days before we show up, they tell us location is Powder Mountain. So they're still being
That's
secretive
where we
about
went
it.
with Sean.
Oh, is it really? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it was cool. We showed up. There's this big lake, and then so it's Thursday night. All the racers are there, and they break the news. Okay, it's not actually Powder Mountain. It's going to be this place called Snow Basin, which is closer, and I think a little smaller. I'm not quite sure, but basically we had the run of the place. Kind of. There are a lot of mountain bikers and hikers that we had to share everything with, but whenever official races were going, everything was locked down pretty hard. So we were not allowed to know any of the events. So to preface this, last year, this is the 5th year they've put on Race for the Rail. It's their annual racing event. In the last 4 years, it's always been this big thing. Last year was the biggest one. I don't know how many people showed up. I want to say between like 200 and 300 racers showed up. And so the first 2 days, Friday and Saturday, are all qualifying rounds. Everyone's doing time trials, and then they narrow it down to the top 16 people. Top 16 fastest times, and they go on to actually do the Race for the Rail in these heats.
That's pretty competitive.
It's very competitive, yeah. And this year, because of COVID, they didn't want to have a giant, convention type organization, so they invited the top 9 racers from last year with 3 additional wildcards, and so that's where we're at. There are 12 racers. Most of them are like literally the top of the game, and I am someone who likes to ride one wheels a lot, and I like to go fast, and I feel like I've gotten pretty good at it over the last like 4.5 years of riding, but I don't know how I stack up against actual racers. And we're talking the best of the best are here. We got the Float Life crew here, Jeff, Raquel, Bodie. We have last year's winner, the winner from the year before that.
It's worth mentioning that you've talked about Bodie many times and how he's probably the best trickster on the one wheel, let alone rider.
Yeah, no, and so that's the other thing, is that there's this whole separate movement that has been born out of one wheeling, and that's just doing tricks, and it feels very much like the early days of skateboarding, like back in the early 80s when this guy would do a thing with his foot and the whole skateboard came off the ground, and everyone was like, what did you just do? And he's like, I don't know, but I'm calling it an ollie. And then goes on to invent the kickflip. I'm blanking on his name again. Legendary
Tony
Skateboarder.
Hawk.
No, not Tony Hawk.
Bob Burnquist.
No, he did a TED Talk. I can't think of his name. It doesn't matter.
Albert Einstein.
Yes, Albert Einstein created the kickflip. And so that's kind of where we're at with one wheeling. But the problem is that a lot of these tricks can break your board.
Oh, Rodney Mullen.
Rodney Mullen, thank you.
I said Rodney Mullen.
You did?
Did
I
you?
did not
No,
hear
you didn't.
Yeah, I did.
He's in
Definitely
Tony
did not
Hawk's.
hear you.
He's in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
I heard you say Bob Burnquist.
That was Jake.
Oh, well, I just heard it. I heard you say Einstein. Well, so yes, Bodie is a very good trickster. So is Jeff McCosker from the Float Life, and so is Kyle from Wheel Fun Stuff, who was another wild card entry who didn't win the popularity contest. He's based out of San Diego. These guys are literally creating new tricks, they're doing heel flips and kick flips and all kinds of weird turns and pop shove-its and stuff with the one wheel, stuff that literally no one thought was even possible just 2 years ago, let alone 1 year ago. So but we're in a race. We're doing freaking downhill hardcore racing, and there are 4 races going into this whole thing. The first one, before we get all to that, we got divided into teams. So they of the 4 women of the group, 2 of them ended up getting chosen to do kind of the whole middle school round robin, I pick you, and then it goes down, and then it's literally just me and my friend Jamie are the last 2 people to get picked, and I'm just this is my middle school experience all over again. And at this point, I'm wanting to embrace that. I'm please make me the last person selected. I want to claim the official underdog spot, and even that was taken from me. I was selected second to last. So my friend Jamie was picked last, and so it was the 2 teams. So that was Thursday night. So then Friday, we go into this, and it's there's 2 race events of the day. And the first one, we all take the gondola all the way up to the top of the ski mountain. We're required to have 50% battery. So that tells me we're going to race down to the bottom of the mountain.
Yeah.
But the race itself is a team race, and it's which team can get their entire roster across the finish line the fastest. And basically what that means is that it's the slowest rider from each team is racing each other, is kind of what that came down to. So we decided to try to be as a group and just like, I ended up being in the lead for most of it, just scouting lines, being like, stick to the left, this turn's a little wishy-washy, stick to the right over here. But we're all kind of going as a cohesive group. The other team, they're just like, full send, everyone just get to the bottom as fast as you can, and they ended up beating our time by like 3 minutes. It was kind of ridiculous.
Damn.
Yeah, so that was like, okay, well, okay. So then the second race of the day was a few hours later, and at this point, I had taken some really hard tumbles going down the mountain, and they're on camera somewhere. Future Motion hasn't released that footage yet, but I took a couple really. What do you mean?
No, they were
when
racing.
You took the hard tumbles. That was all part of the race.
That was the actual race, and so that was the thing. We are dropping 4,000 feet over the course of around 3.5, 4 miles, and first chunk, the first quarter mile to half mile, was easily the sketchiest terrain I'd ever gone on. Like, Nico, we've ridden some pretty hard stuff before. None of that compares to what we did for Race of the Rail.
Really?
Like, none of it. And so this first bit is basically just going down a giant gravel field at a really stupidly steep incline. And we're talking rocks anywhere the size of GoPros to full on watermelons.
So you're tail scraping potentially the whole time if you're trying to slow down.
Yes, yeah. And on top of that, we're the first group to go, so we don't know that we should not go that fast through this one section, so we're all bombing it. And everyone eventually kind of bails off the board at one point, and I get down to and I bailed it once or twice going down this, get back on, you keep going. Then down at the bottom of it, my board hit a rock and went this way, and I went that way, and I just tumbled, and I hit my hips so hard. So hard. Fortunately, I was wearing that motorcycle jacket that my friend Lance Hashida let me borrow, and that literally saved my life. On the second day, I hit my back really hard. I'm fairly confident I would have broken my back without that back plate. And I'll get to that story.
You're going hard, man.
Dude, I was that first bit, I was going so hard. I was like, okay, I have to kind of take it easy. And then I was able to catch up with the rest of the group, pass them, but we just stayed as a group the whole time. And this was where it kind of confused me a bit, because I'm now in the lead easily. I'm trying to go faster, but at a certain point, I literally stopped and turned around. And I was like, where is everyone? I had to wait for them to catch up. And so, Ori and Dave, Tahoe Dave, were two racers that are very fast. And Dave won it 2 years ago, and he was second place last year. So he's also a very fast guy. One of the most humble people I've ever met. And, they're behind me, but it's because they're sticking with the rest of the group. And I was like, okay, all right. I didn't get a good gauge on how I stacked up against the other fast racers from this first event. So that's where the second event came in. But problem is that it was 6,000 feet base altitude up there, and I started getting cramps in my legs and from the lack of oxygen. And I was like, I ate a banana. What's wrong? I thought I was on top of my nutrition. I thought I was in shape. And then that second race came in and just kicked my butt, because it was, oh my God, that second track was so difficult. It was so gnarly, because you go up and then you're doing these mountain bike trails where there are certain sections of just nothing but rock, where it feels like you're riding over a lava field. And there are sections where it's you have to hit this rock with enough speed that you could bonk over it and catch enough air to clear the next two rocks after it, and then land and keep going. Otherwise, you're getting off your board. And this is expected of every racer, just to be able to bonk over that stuff and catch air, and then keep going, and then going around stuff. And
Whoa.
And I was doing really well the first half of that second race. And I was like, all right, I've yet to even fall off. I think I might actually do really good. And then the second half of the race, my legs started cramping up. I started losing strength in my thighs, to the point that I would land after hitting a jump, and my leg didn't have the strength to withstand it. And man, I fell off several times. My board fell off the trail at one point, tumbling down. I was like, no! Fortunately, I got caught up in some bushes, so it didn't take too much time. There was a lot of confusion about directions on this race. There were forks that weren't clearly labeled, and at one point, I probably wasted 30 seconds not being sure where to go, because there's this fork to the right. I was like, okay, I think this is the way to go. This is the way I remember going. And then just at that moment, I saw a racer going up the hill, the guy after me. And I was like, oh yeah, this is the way back. And I get oriented to go that way. And then I hear...
Oh.
Oh.
Oh. Ren. Ren.
Ren. Ren.
Ren.
Red, no, I'm on the seat. I'm on the edge of my seat, man. Which way did you have to go?
Which way did he go? We never know now.
Did he go left or right? He saw the guy going up the hill, but oh no.
Does that mean that the guy was going the right way, or does that mean that the guy tricked him? And
I don't know.
He wasn't supposed to go that way.
All right, Jake, let's take bets. Did Ren blue screen, or did his internet cut out?
His internet cut out.
You think I think he blue screened.
Well,
I think he's. Yeah, I think he blue screened.
Maybe.
Which means he lost his recording too.
Look at his Christian cut to his. Oh man.
Before we go any further, it's time to tell you guys about today's sponsor, Storyblocks. Now, yeah, if you listen to this podcast, you've probably heard me talk about Storyblocks in the past, and there's actually a very specific reason for that. Now, they like to sponsor this podcast because we actually use Storyblocks here at Corridor Digital. Whether you're just an amateur creator or an aspiring professional or already a professional creator yourself, we've all come across the moment. You're working on a project, you're trying to finish it, and you're thinking, look, you know what would be perfect here? If I just had B-roll of this thing, or if I just had a sound asset that sounded like this, or if, you know what would save me a few hours here? A motion graphic or some sort of After Effects template that I could just drop into this title sequence, and it would make my life so much easier, and I'd get this project done way faster. We've all experienced that, and Storyblocks is the solution for us here at Corridor Digital. Why? Because with an unlimited all-access plan, we can download as much from the site as we want in high quality 4K, a site that's constantly being updated, and we can use that wherever we want. So whether or not we're working on a project for a client, or we're just working on a project for YouTube, or we're just working on a project for ourselves, Storyblocks has the solution when it comes to all of your stock asset needs. I don't need to tell you how nice it is to have a place where you can go, where every time you get to that moment in a project, you just go Storyblocks. So if you guys are interested in making your life easier, or you want to just add another tool to the arsenal of things that you have as a video creator, head on over to storyblocks.com/corridorcast or click the link in the description below. Okay? Okay. Storyblocks.com/corridorcast. You're good? You're not going to forget? Okay, back to the podcast.
He's gone.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
Oh, quick, fill in the gaps. Oh, he's back. Maybe he didn't blue screen.
Red.
God dang. Internet cut out. The internet cut out for a moment.
Jake was right.
I was literally about to text you. I was about to try to like tether into my phone.
We don't know what happened. You were in the
did you
middle
go
of
right or
that.
left?
You were in the middle of the story, and you're like, and then I sat there for 30 seconds, and I was looking both ways, and then I saw another racer up on the other end of the hill, and that made me want to go.
Oh no! Dang, I kept talking for a bit after that too.
So which way did you go?
So I was about to head up that road because it curls back and then it comes down to the starting line, and that's where the guy was going. Bodie was the guy after me, and I was like, okay, that's the way to go. And so I get oriented to go that way, and then I hear off in the distance, straight, go straight, and I'm like, okay, dang it. Because I had already gotten off my board, turned around, and gotten back on it, and then I had to get off again, turn it back around, because there's not enough room to like literally turn around, and I didn't have the strength to do my little 180. But yeah, and so I get down to the bottom, and I didn't. I placed 9th place. I don't know how much of this I'm retelling again.
No, this is brand new.
Okay, so I think
my
my final time was like 9 minutes and 52 seconds, and the guys that I wanted to be competitive against were getting like 8.5 minutes to 9 minutes.
Oh.
No, so Dom and Bodie both placed very good times. I think Dom's time was like 7.5 minutes or something like that.
So this is the individual race?
So, okay, this is the second of 4 races, and they're individual time trials.
Okay.
But in order to win the entire event, your team collectively has to have the shortest time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that was the other thing. They had this whole like money purse thing that each team, if you win that event, had $3,000 going to your team. And there were 3 events, so you could potentially end up getting $9,000. But you can only take home that money, $9,000 split between the 6 racers. But you can only take home that money if a racer on your team won the final race for the rail.
Oh, that's a catch.
It's a bit of a catch.
It's a big catch.
Let's say hypothetically we won all 3 events, but then Brendan, who was on the other team, went on to win the whole thing. We got nothing.
That's lame.
It would have been lame, but it didn't play out that way.
So how did they determine who the best individual is?
I think that's coming up.
Shortest time? What do you mean?
Okay. Yeah, right. So but it wasn't just a team thing. Like,
So yes. So it was a team thing in the sense that like someone's got to win this event. One of the teams do, but the actual qualifying times were what those times were used as qualifying times for the final race for the rail, and how we ended up getting bracketed in the heats.
I see.
For the final race,
so
there are
you-
going to be 3 heats of 4 people each.
So in this race number 2 of 4 races, you placed 9th.
Yes.
Not last place.
It wasn't last place, which, to be honest, was the one thing that I actually wanted, or at least that was the thing I said out loud that I wanted. In
To not be
reality, I
last.
wanted
To
to
not
do
be
first. Yeah, I just didn't want to be last. I didn't want to. Because it's like going into this whole thing, no one knows anything about who I am other than like I have like this personality online, right? And I wanted to prove to them that I deserve to be here. I wanted to prove to all the other racers that submitted wildcard submissions that, you know, them getting snubbed wasn't in vain.
well,
It's
know?
fitting there's 2 Onewheels in the background of your video feed, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
you lost.
This is where they live.
You lost that race by 1.5 minutes, though, Wren.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there
It's a big
were
gap.
that's
well,
a
okay,
pretty
there were 2
big
other
gap.
racers that were a lot closer. I think Raquel had a closer time, and Zoe had a closer time. They were around like 9 minutes and 6 seconds and 9 minutes and 15 seconds.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a big gap, and that was why that whole night I was kind of depressed, being like, "Dang, I don't deserve to be here." This sucks.
Did you have like did Nick capture you having like a self-reflective moment in the mirror, like in the hotel room, like?
Kind of.
You
so
know?
I guess we also haven't clarified. We brought Nick along with us and recorded an entire thing. You know,
Yeah.
You know, a whole. You know, he was there documenting the entire process, all the highs and lows that I went through, all the highs and lows all the other racers went through. It's a big thing. Lots of footage. It's going to be another couple weeks before that video comes out, but I think it'll be a really good one.
Yeah.
Because in the end, an underdog story had a big through line through the whole thing, so I think it'll be a good video. Because Brendan, he went on to win the whole thing, and he's a friend of mine. We're gonna have him come by the studio probably next week to show off his trophy, his nunchucks, his
cool.
golden nunchucks. So
Awesome.
I totally lost where I was in the story.
So you just finished race 2 of 4.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
you got
so-
9th place.
And I was bummed about that. And so then the next day, we show up and there's like some media time. There's a professional photographer on site taking photos of us going through these trails, and I'm just kind of like hanging out, having a good time. But the third event is scheduled for early that afternoon, and I'm kind of just like, all right, this is my last chance to prove myself. And so we get up there, and it's a relay race. This is up at the top of the gondola. We're at like 10,000 feet altitude up here. And it's this small, like maybe a half-mile loop. Very technical terrain, but not as technical as the second racetrack. It was much shorter. We got this guy named Tucker Doss came and flew his drone around and got some FPV footage of us, so you can actually clearly see like how cool of a track this was. Nico, you'd love to race this one. But
Yeah, it sounds great.
yeah, no, there were great moments of like you're going along and it's like smooth, slightly rocky single track, but then there'd be bits of like big rocks that you'd have to navigate through. But there was always a line that you can actually ride through if you're careful, as opposed to the
Nice.
second track, which was like hit it and hope for the best. So the other team went first, and it was a relay race. It was just one after another, and everyone's averaging somewhere between 2 minutes 15 seconds and like 2.5 minutes per racer. And then our team goes up, and they did really well. They got like I want to say like 13 minutes or something like that total. So then we go up, we get our order straight, and I'm like the 4th racer to go. And all right, and I'm in the zone at this point. I am focused, and I'm coming at this like I'm gonna do this. And I didn't want to like do a full send where I could risk actually falling. So I don't know if I was giving it 90%, maybe between 80 and 90%, but I was focused on just being careful to not fall off the board and to go as fast as I can through all the straight bits. So I did it, managed to not fall off my board, and I was feeling good. Even the final bit there, where the hardest bit of that whole race was like the final like 100 feet, where it got like really rocky.
Really?
And I managed to get that and finish over the finish line. And then I got my time back, and I got 2 minutes and 10 seconds, which
Is that-
it put me in 4th place amongst everyone.
That's awesome.
So I achieved
That's good.
what I wanted. I wanted to
Yeah.
have competitive times, and so I ended up beating the only 2 people out of everyone who raced. There were 3 people who beat me. It was Dom, who won last year, Bodie, who is a very good fast rider, who is the kind of the favorite to win this year. It was a big rivalry between Dom and Bodie, and Dave, Tahoe Dave, who's this 43-year-old unassuming guy who happens to be stupidly fast on a one wheel. He's been on the podium like 3 years in a row, and he won it one of those years. Second place last year. Yeah. Anyway, they were the only, and Dave's time was like 2 minutes and 6 seconds, so he only beat me by 4 seconds. Dom was 2 minutes even. Bodie was 1 minute 55. So I'm like pretty close. But I beat Brendan's time. I beat Ori's time. Jeff McCosker's time. I beat those guys' times on this track. And of course, they're going to say, oh, I wasn't trying that hard. I'm waiting
Bob
for the final
Burnquist,
thing.
Chad Muska.
Sure they were.
Rodney Mullen's time. Bob Burnquist's time.
Yes. Anyway.
Tony Hawk's time.
But here's the thing, though. That made it so that, like, I actually deserve to be here now. I set a time that was amongst, like, the top racers.
Yeah, that's huge.
I did it. I did it. That was all I wanted. I had no... I didn't think I was going to win anything. I was hoping to just not get last, but internally I was really hoping to earn the other racers' respect. That was kind of the one thing. I wanted to earn their respect as a racer, not as a person. I'm sure I had no doubt I was going to be able to earn their respect as a person. That's what I do.
I respect you as a racer, but I don't respect you as a person. Can I interject to the story for just a second here?
Do it.
So this is the point. I don't know if everybody listening knows this or not, but I've been in the wilderness for the past like 8 days, like literally in the middle of nowhere on the border between Canada and Minnesota, where it's just pure wilderness, like 20 miles in, that you had to get there without any motors. You had to do it through canoes and hiking. So on the way in, this is as far as we've gotten in the story, at least what I've seen, because I went in on Sunday morning, and this is Saturday when you finish this race, Wren.
Yeah.
And then for a week straight, I didn't have any cell phone coverage or anything like that. And there's 3 things I was looking forward to when I got back out. First one was seeing my wife and my kid again. The second one was playing Microsoft Flight Simulator, which I've been looking forward to for like a year and came out in the middle of the trip. And the third thing, and one of like the first things I did when I got out there, was I watched the race, the final race.
Wow.
Because I knew going in, you had gotten 4th place, and the time's like, oh shit, Wren's competitive. I wonder what's going to happen. All right. Tell us about the final race.
So the final race, this is the final day. And going into this race, I was nervous because like they I don't know the name of the team they hired to do the whole live stream production, but it was a legitimate team of like a dozen people. They normally do, I'm going to get this wrong, but I think they do like the World Surfing Championships. They're the ones who like broadcast that on TV and stuff. So this is like a legit team. They are professionals who
we worked for them back in like 2009.
What?
Yeah, Sam and I did the, maybe it was 2010. We did the Surfer's Choice Awards, which is a live stream show for all the titles. I think it was probably those guys.
Dang. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, they had a whole setup. They had, multiple cameras, multiple wireless cameras as well on GoPros, on drones, and they had a whole like switching team just monitoring the feed, switching back and forth. So it felt like a real like full on production.
Yeah.
Big props to the Future Motion team for making that happen. But yeah, so it's like we get up there. This is the thing. So I'm in the first heat. I am the first one to go down the mountain with 3 other racers. And I am up against Angel, who was a teammate of mine, but she had been kind of at the back of all of the times. Plus, she also really hurt her hip on that first race, so I think that was kind of slowing her down quite a bit. So needless to say, I wasn't too worried about beating her, but the 2 other people I was racing against were Dom and Brendan.
That's
last year's champion and this year's champion. So I was like, okay, but I didn't know Brendan was going to go on and win the whole thing. To be honest, I don't think any of the racers expected that. It was kind of an upset. Everyone was expecting it to be either Dom or Bodie. And so I knew I wasn't going to be able to beat Dom. My only goal was to beat Brendan so that I can proceed to the next heat. And so I'm like, all right, Dom's going to win this. Brendan will be close behind, and hopefully I'm like right there giving Brendan a run for his money. And we get going down, and I'm going fast. I'm right behind Dom. I'm neck and neck with Brendan, and we're kind of going along. Brendan gets ahead of me, and then I got stuck in this chunky bit in the middle of the track where it's just boulders, essentially half-buried boulders, and it was like basically going down a staircase, like duk, 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 duk. Except I'm going 23 miles an hour, and so it was like, duk, duk, duk. And so my feet just slowly vibrated off the board, and then I had to just jump off, and the moment moment I stepped off the board, I knew it was over. I knew there was absolutely no way I was going to catch up. And I was right. And so I spent the rest of that race just like trying not to fall off my board, just having a good time with it. Every time I went by a camera, I was like putting my hands out, doing a wing motion and stuff like that. And then I get down to this point and I'm like coming up to this cameraman. I'm like, I'm going to make a face for him. And he's looking the other way. Hey, I'm coming by. You should have your camera on me. And I didn't realize this until after the race ended, but this is a totally normal thing in races. No one cares about whoever's not in first or second place. Yeah. So the moment I stepped off that board, I did not appear on camera for the rest of the race until after I had finished. I'm not even on camera finishing the race. I'm on camera going, you won? You won? What?
Yeah, I noticed that when they got to the finish line, when they cut to the feed, they actually cut to the feed at the top of the mountain instead of the bottom of the mountain from when they crossed the finish line.
Yeah. And
that's
so that was
classic in races, though. Like
for sure.
Like having run enough track to experience that, like you're like, wait, I was in fourth this whole race. I wasn't on camera one time.
Yeah, no, it's like I totally get it. But what I didn't know at the time was that the upset was occurring in my race. Brendan passed Dom, and Dom was not able to recover, and Brendan won that heat. I didn't realize that until after I finished, and everyone's like, "Yeah, Brendan." I'm like, "Wait, Brendan won? Oh my god!"
Yeah, it's nuts.
So did they determine the final winner by two heats, or did he make it on to like a final heat then and race again?
So that's the thing. There, first round there are 3 heats, and the top 2 racers from each of those heats go on to the second round. Okay. And the second round contains 2 heats with 3 racers each.
Oh, okay. So they didn't race everyone with the fastest times together in a finale. Like they just picked from those final 3 heats the fastest time.
I'm not exactly sure. I mean, the 2 fastest racers from each heat got bracketed out in the second round. So
it's just like a tournament bracket where it's
a tournament bracket.
Dom and Brendan, Dom and Brendan,
Floaty McFly. Yes.
To the next one, and then from the other heat, 2 guys went on from that, and then it's those 4 people racing against each other.
3 and 3.
Heats. Sorry. Okay. Gotcha.
2 heats, 3 racers each.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and that was when my friend Jamie won his heat. He got to go on, which was another unexpected thing for everyone because he's a bit of a heavier guy. But here's the thing: when you put him on a downhill slope, he is faster than everyone. And
that's right.
Sure enough, he beat everyone in that first race, and so that was also a bit of an upset because he was racing against Bodie and Dave, and he beat both of them.
So Wren, the question everyone is wondering: what did you place?
I don't know my final placement.
What was your comparatively with your final time?
I don't know.
They didn't give you your final time?
They're like, he's not in first. He doesn't get a time either.
I mean, kind of. Like, a lot of us are still waiting on our times for that. Like, I don't know what my actual final time for that race is. I'd like to know, because I know Brendan's final race was 2 minutes and 56 seconds. And that was the fastest run of the entire day. I wouldn't be surprised if my time was like 3 minutes and like 45 seconds or something. I don't know.
So Brendan
hopefully less than that.
He not only beat everybody, Dom, in your heat, he then beat everybody again in the next heat afterwards.
Exactly. So in the second round, he was up against Dom and I think Bodie. I think it was those 3 guys in that race, and same thing happened again. He was able to overtake Dom.
It's like being up against Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan. And yeah,
and but he had good strategy going into that race. He knew the parts where he's able to go fast and overtake, and even like the arc. There's this one challenging bit where it's going through the grass where there was technically a trail, but it was like this wide, and it didn't give you any room to like maneuver or anything. So a lot of racers kind of went in the grass, but that was a bit of a toss-up because the grass is bumpy and holy, and several racers went down in the grass, but he managed to find the spot where he was able to basically take a really wide turn and then come in with a really tight turn at the end of that to overtake Dom on the final section of sidewalk.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, it was honestly a really exciting race. We got kicked out of the building at one point because me and a few of the other racers who were out were hanging out in the building that the live stream team was working in, and we're erupting like, oh my God, because we're watching on our phones, just streaming the race like everyone else. Like, oh my God. And we got kicked out because we were distracting the actual live stream team.
So, Wren, if we had to average all the times you place, you got 4th in one, you got 9th in another, you're 7th best?
I don't even want to give a number for that because I think it's
I
not
know, but
meaningful to put a number on it.
I feel like we owe a number.
One.
I think I ranked it about number 1. Yeah, I'd say that was where my guess would be how I ranked up against everyone. Yeah.
Oh, Christian says you were the 6th seed. That's what Christian says.
This could be from he sent through
The
something
6th
through.
seed.
He's looking at the tournament brackets. He said you were the 6th seed.
Well, the seed doesn't mean necessarily that's how you finished, though.
Oh, it has your times here, Ren.
Oh, does it?
9:52:22 is what your time is.
Oh, no, that was from that second race.
Gotcha.
Those are all times from our second race, and so I wasn't the number 6 seed. That was my number. My number on my
Gotcha.
jersey is number 6.
Oh, okay. Man, so Brendan.
So you heard it here
Year
first. Wren Weichman, the 6th best one-wheeler.
Man, it's crazy that Brendan took 3 heats in a row. And
Those
Tahoe
guys-
Dave is 43 years old, and he was in the final heat.
Mm-hmm.
It's nuts.
He's
God
been
damn,
like,
Tahoe Dave.
he's been on the that's what I'm saying. He's like stupidly fast. And
You guys are
so
on
it's
stock boards.
so that was the other thing. We were told you had to use stock boards, which meant 0 modifications to the tire, the foot pads, the bumpers, the battery, nothing. Everything had to be factory delivered. Didn't have to be new. We were able to use our own boards as long as there are no modifications. So I actually borrowed a friend's board that was purely unmodified, but it'd been broken in. It had like 500 or 600 miles on it. So I was going to use that. And basically right at the time we're getting there, they changed their mind. They're like, no, everyone has to use a board that is fresh out of the box. And not a single racer was happy about that because the Vega tire, which is the stock tire that comes with the one wheel, is notoriously hard to ride for like trail riding. It's put in the one wheel because it's a very flat profile, and so it's a very stable riding tire, but if you're wanting to do any sort of carving, it's got a lot of like turn resistance and whatnot. And so what all of us did the night before, which we were allowed to do, we were allowed to break in the tire however we wanted. So I learned some new things about breaking in tires. First, you shave down the corner of the tire by basically grabbing the front like this, like you're holding like a hard drive or something like this. You know, you grab it here and you activate the front sensors, and then you tilt it back so the wheel is trying to like ride away from you. And then you basically just tilt it on its side and let it burn out on the corner of the tire.
Huh.
And you just do that, and you're hearing like this it literally sounds like someone's burning out in a car. And you know, you're getting those familiar fumes of burnt rubber. You're leaving it behind a little stain on the concrete, and you just kind of do that back and forth until you get a little bit more of a rounded profile. The second thing you got to do is you got to lower your PSI down to around like 5 PSI or less, and you just ride around for like a couple miles, just doing really tight, hard curves, and that'll break down the sidewalls of the tire because the sidewalls are really stiff on a brand new tire, and you can actually feel it. It kind of feels almost like it vibrates a little bit. It's crunchy feeling.
Yeah.
And that's just the sidewalls actually buckling whenever it's going underneath you. But the more times it buckles, the more broken in it gets. And eventually that crunchiness starts going away. And then you inflate it back up, and all of a sudden you've got like this tire that feels great. After like 2 miles on this tire, and it's a broken in tire. And it's like, this is info I was getting from, you know, Jeff McCosker, Bodie, Dom. These guys are like, oh yeah, no, this is what you do. And they're all doing it as if it was like common knowledge. And I'm like, wow, I'm learning so much.
That's really cool. So, was the prize ever another one wheel?
No.
I guess it makes sense. It's like, hi, all you professional one wheelers. Here, have a one wheel. It's like, what am I gonna do with this?
Well, okay, so there's a big asterisk to that. So all of the riders were hoping that we were going to be able to keep the stock board, but their budget was tight enough that they didn't have it in their budget to be able to give those boards away. They were already spending so much money on everything else, on all our travel and all accommodations. The COVID restrictions were keeping stuff complicated. The whole like streaming team was expensive. Renting out the mountain was expensive, I'm sure. So it was a bit of a bummer that none of us got to like keep the boards. That would have been cool, but I don't know. I got pretty close with the team as a whole from Future Motion, and I've developed a lot of sympathy for them because they're just trying to do the best that they can with what they're allowed to do, and I see a lot of hate that they get online, and having like talked with them a bit now, I think it's a little undeserved. A little bit, and so I have some sympathy for him now. That being said, it would have been really cool to get some Onewheels out of this. So what ended up happening? So again, going back to the whole team aspect, Team Delirium, which was the other team, were in the end a much faster team collectively.
Did they name
than all
you
of
guys
us.
after riding profiles?
Yes, yeah. So it's Team Delirium and Team Skyline. So Team Skyline and Delirium they're approximately the same sort of aggressive profile riding mode. On both the XR and the Pint, respectively. And yeah, so the other team, they just ended up having way faster riders, and they crushed us by a lot in every event. So that whole team got a $9,000 purse that they were going to split amongst themselves if one of their racers won the entire race. Brendan was on that team. He won the thing, so they all got the money. And Brendan ended up getting, I want to say like $5,000, I think. Maybe it was more. I don't exactly know.
So if you...
actually, that's what it was. He ended up winning $6,500 because the 6 of them split that $9,000, and he got $5,000 for winning and the $1,500 for winning the whole thing. And so what they ended up doing was they made this deal that they can either take the check for $1,500 or they can take the one wheel. And that's what I think all of them ended up doing, I think. Because there's this whole thing with like hardware version... I don't want to dive too into the technical weeds here because of things. I don't want.
I'm sure
anyway.
they're all purists about like you need to have this iteration from this year because they use this type of hardware profile that is.
Well, it's
unmatched.
because Future Motion is fighting back against modding, and so they've from hardware version 4210 onwards, the controller board and the battery pack are paired, so you can't repair them anymore without replacing both. And it's like if the BMS in your battery dies, you can't just swap it out with a new one. You have to also swap out your controller board. It's a really unfortunate thing, but it's their attempt to, fight back against the very real liability of if one of their boards, explodes. Even if it's not their fault at all, like their brand recognition is on the line with that. So it sucks. As a person who very much so supports the right to repair, it's the same sort of mentality that Tesla takes, and it's a bit of a bummer, but I get it. So anyway, some of the boards that they were racing were 4209 boards, which were boards that you can fix and repair. And so they're like, yes, these boards are valuable. They traded those out. I also had the opportunity to buy it. I think they were giving us like $175 off the full price to be able to buy it. So I had the option of doing that, but I was like, I was prepared to buy it. I was going to, but only if I won enough money from this event to do it.
What
I was
happens?
get another one wheel.
What happens if you win the race, but your team doesn't have the overall fastest or lowest time?
You would still win the money for you.
But your team doesn't win the $9,000.
Your team, yeah.
I see.
Interesting.
Okay.
So yeah, if Dave ended up winning, who was on our team, Dave would have won $5,000, and the other team would have gotten nothing.
Good old Tahoe Dave.
They wouldn't have gotten anything, even though they would have had a fastest overall.
Yeah.
Even though they would have had the fastest overall time.
If Dave would have won.
Man,
If Dave won.
I don't mean to.
That's how they chose to do it, and
It seems I don't know what their financial situation is. Okay, I'm not here to judge, but I do want to say this: like, for bringing everybody out, and for as many one wheels as they probably sell, and for as expensive as they are, I just feel like, the $175 coupon off thing, not really doing it for me. I'm not trying to dog on them, but like,
I know.
where is that coming from?
See, that I think that was a pretty shared feeling, and I certainly felt that way until I started talking with the team and kind of like learned a little bit more about how strapped they are. Like, apparently it's actually really difficult for them to get boards, because we're like, what are they gonna do with these race boards? Like, they can't give them away, and they're like, no, we're gonna use them as like boards for us anytime we need to go anywhere, use them for marketing research or whatever. Like, it's really hard for them to get, or like if they go in events, they have to bring some boards out, stuff like that. They do that quite a bit.
Your dog.
It's apparently
needs a
hard
board.
for them to get boards in general, and Yeah, it's like it's strange. Like I feel like the marketing team is kind of detached from the rest of the company, and like they don't even know what like the next Onewheel is gonna be. You know, like I'm sure they might have an idea, but like there's a lot of like separation between like the R&D team, the engineers, and like the marketing. And yeah, I don't know. I have nothing but respect for the entire marketing team and the engineering team. But that being said, I'm just come on.
Right. Well, it's not like it's the team is making that decision, right? Somebody higher up is making that decision.
My personal theory, which is perhaps completely based on nothing, but I have a feeling that the whole company is run by lawyers.
Really?
I think that they're very much so like, and again, this is unsubstantiated speculation. I think that a lot of their decisions are based on how can we mitigate risk several times over.
It's
how
can
I gotta imagine
the coupon sounds like it's run by lawyers. I'm not gonna lie.
I was gonna say, based on like how the company started too, it's like, basically some surfers wanted a way to surf on the sidewalk, so they kind of put together this device. It definitely feels like, they weren't also like, and I also can't wait to be the CEO of a large company in, San Jose, California. Like, it don't strike me as that's where they were coming from necessarily.
Yeah, and I mean, I get that desire to be, really conservative and whatnot, but at the same time,
fall off a motorcycle and sue Harley.
They're advertising these guys doing the most extreme stuff possible on their board. And the speeds that like Dom and Brendan were hitting, they were hitting 26 miles an hour of sustained riding. Like I think Brendan hit 25.9 and Dom hit 26.2.
That's nuts.
It's
There's
absolutely
a good rule,
nuts.
which is don't go faster than you're willing to crash at.
Yeah. And that was Brendan's mentality through all that. He's like, I'm just going to go as fast as I physically can. If I crash, so be it. That's my fate. And that was why I wore the armor, because I knew I was going to have to adopt that mentality, and I knew that there was a very real likelihood that in doing so, I would go down and injure myself really hard.
Yeah, you definitely want to be wearing armor when you're racing that hard in in that terrain. Like, no question about it.
Yeah,
because you will fall.
Oh, so going back to earlier when I said I would have broken my back.
They're like MotoGP riders, and they don't wear armor.
Yeah. Oh, no. So this is after the third race on the second day, and we're heading down the mountain because we did the whole race up at the top there. So now we're doing the same track we did the first race of the first day. And so now I have a better idea going into it. And sure enough, I was able to do that whole really sketchy first section without falling off my board once. And I did all right. And I was going through, and Jeff McCosker, runs the Float Life. Awesome dude, really into Onewheels and how they work and how to like get them to do tricks and stuff like that. And he has arguably some like the best accessories that you can get for the Onewheel, float plates, stuff like that. And so he's also very renowned for being fast. He won the race for Float Life Fest last year, which is the other Onewheel racing event. I hope to make it out there someday. It's just in, I think, North Carolina, so it's a little hard to get out there. Mm-hmm. And anyway, so he's a bona fide speedster, and so him and I are racing going down this track, and I'm sure he was kind of taking it casually. I wasn't going super hard, but I was still kind of trying to push it. But at a certain point, I got stuck in the middle again, hit some rocks, and my board went out, and I managed to get one step down, but that step spun me around in the air. So now I'm flying headfirst down the trail, down this fire road, but upside down. So like my face is at the sky, and I just land on these rocks, like boulder-sized rocks. And I slid probably like 10 or 15 feet before coming to a stop. Ugh. And like, jarred, neck whiplash from my neck, hitting my head hard. I tore up my brand new jersey that we had just been gifted for the final race the next day. I put it on, shredded it. But it's great now because now they're like, they're cool scars. But I was able to bounce up from that like it was nothing. But I am nearly 100% positive I would have cracked one of those like little fins on your vertebrae. Mm-hmm. I'm sure I would have broken one of those on that crash because I hit hard.
No, you got to wear a gaiter when you're doing that at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I had a full-on plate, like an actual strong plate going along my entire spine.
Yeah. Good thing you did.
Shoulder pads, elbow pads,
Wren, that whole race sounds like an awesome experience. And honestly, like, speaking from, I guess, the corridor side of things, like the one wheel guys have always been very elusive to try to talk to. Like it's
They're
clear
a little
that they're
elusive.
yeah, well, it's also clear that they're like a very young company, and like, some parts of the company have expanded it a lot. Other parts of the company are still kind of catching up. It's like, it's like here at Corridor, like we're hiring our first IT guys, like, 12
Yeah.
years into running this business now.
Yeah.
So it's like some things lag behind here and there, and like, trying to talk to them and figure things out has always been hard because there's not really anybody to talk to.
Their elusive owners, Kepler and Schwartz LLP.
That must be the guys that started it or something.
some elusive no-name law firm somewhere.
Wait, you made those names up?
Yeah, I'm just making
Okay,
it up.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Because I do think they did take in a big ownership thing at some point in the last 2 years. But Kyle is the name of the guy who actually invented the one wheel. I've always wanted to meet him. Kyle, if you happen to see this, come have dinner
Kyle,
with me.
if you're at 53 minutes into this podcast, you owe it to us to at least say hi.
No, he's apparently very reclusive, and so well.
Dude, he just wants to ride his one wheel, man. He just
Yeah.
wants to ride his special one wheel that no one else has, that has replaceable batteries and a motor that's twice as powerful and all those other things that we want to see in the
I don't think
wheels.
we'll ever see replaceable batteries in a one wheel.
I agree.
I hope to be
I-
wrong, but I don't think it'll happen.
No, I 100% agree. I don't think the mechanics are there for it.
Yeah. So after we're done with this whole podcast, Nico, I'll tell you all about my new one wheel battery because I don't want to talk about it here, but
Ooh.
it's a thing. It's a thing.
Speaking of one wheels exploding.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's super cool, man. Like,
Yeah, it was an incredible time, and the thing that I knew was going to be my favorite part didn't disappoint me. My favorite part was just hanging out with all the other racers, all the other people there. It was just a really, really fun time, just getting to know everyone and talking shop, with one wheelers. Like Dom is a 15-year-old kid. Well, 16 now. He's 15 last year when he won it. So he's just like a high school kid, and he's going into his senior year now. And like, they're doing these classes over Zoom. So instead of like actually paying attention to class, he's like repairing one wheels and like selling parts on the side and like making this whole business for himself, hustling like crazy. And so him and I talked shop about like, controllers and batteries and all kinds of stuff.
That's the mysterious Dom. I've heard of this kid. Now
Wait,
that you mentioned him in that context, he's come up
Yeah.
in conversation before, and I'm like, who's this? He's like one of those characters in like an Ocean's 11 assembly montage, and they're going around to like different people, and he's the kid in high school. That's what he sounds like.
Yeah, he just happens to be incredibly good on a one wheel. His like sense of balance and speed going over really difficult terrain is almost unmatched.
so Wren, here's the big question.
Yeah.
Are you going to be back as one of the regular riders next
Hell
year?
yeah.
Or are they going to make you wild carded again?
Okay, so I think next year, assuming COVID is like a little bit
Oh,
more
yeah, I
of a
suppose.
past thing, all of this is dependent on whether or not COVID is a thing, right? If there's a widely accessible vaccine, I'm sure there will be a lot of like certifications that you got to go through in order to make sure that you have it or whatever. But if it's more of a group thing, I'm gonna have to go through the same time trials everyone else does. But I'm telling you what, right now, I am preparing for that now. There's a few things that I got to work on. One, strength in my legs. So I'm going to start doing squats. I'm going to start doing altitude training. I'm going to make sure that going into that race next year, I am not suffering from lack of strength in my legs. That was the thing that killed me on that second race.
Are you going to get an altitude tent? You can get you can get one of those,
I mean, I don't know. I don't know how seriously I'll take the altitude aspect of it, but yeah, I'm gonna try to be more in shape for next year because I'm definitely coming back next year. Now that I know that I have a chance at like getting into the top 16, I'm gonna actually try hard for it. Because this year I was just kind of coasting in on my current athleticism, which isn't that high. I'm like very standard athleticism. I do enough one wheeling and that's enough.
You're the default loadout.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like even in all categories.
Yeah.
I'm free to play. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one more kind of self-centered question. If you were to take the rest of the boardsmen here, how would we stack up? Could any of us hang?
No.
Oh.
No, I'm sorry, Nico. I'm sorry.
There's no way, man.
None of you guys would stand a chance. Like,
I'm not talking about
like,
first place. I don't think any of us could take first place. I'm talking about not taking last place.
I'm just not gonna. I
Okay.
wouldn't. I'm
I
just.
think-
No, that's a
I
no.
There's no way you're gonna get me to ride down a mountain at 25 miles an hour going, if I fall, I fall. Like I'm not gonna get there. You know?
I think you could probably beat a couple of the racers. I'm not going to name names, but I think you could probably manage it. Like you, Dean, Clint, Jake, if you wanted to. I think like
Cliff could probably do all right. I could see Cliff doing all right. He's got like that weight. Well, then again, you go faster when you're heavier. But man, Cliff just floats over those little bumps.
if you're going downhill at least. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's not all the races were downhill. You know, some of them were partly uphill, flat. You know,
It's like a little one-wheel jockey just floating over.
but yeah,
over
it
the
was
bumps.
very eye-opening because I was at the top of my game through this trip, and even I was just struggling to be competitive.
That's awesome. That's so cool when you're in that situation. Like it's always so
It was
like,
cool. It was very cool.
humbling and like it makes you grow as a person when you're in those situations.
Yeah. So ultimately I was just I had a great time hanging out with these racers, and I was just personally happy that I was able to actually finally know that I stand a chance against the top one-wheel racers in the world. Like
That's super cool.
Yeah, that's
cool.
awesome.
I didn't beat everyone, and I didn't beat even the people I did beat on that one track. That was just one race, you know, like
Yeah.
you know, they beat me on the other race, so who's to say that I'm faster than them? You know, there's a lot of things at play, but
I think it's
I was
really
also
cool.
still very much so a noob when it comes to race mentality. That's an actual thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you know, it's not all about like being on your board too. It's about your like racing lines and your techniques, or when you accelerate versus decelerate and all that stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a whole other discipline. You could probably have the same exact speed with two different people, but one person knows a racing line better than the other. I mean, that sounds like how Brendan got ahead of Dom there when he took that curve the right way.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think it's super cool that in our little one-wheeling club we have a somebody who raced in the world championship and somebody who's on the top 10 for mileage in the world.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
like two
Jan
top
has
10s.
like almost 12,000 miles on his 1XR. He's also got like 3,000 miles on his V1. He's up there with like the most miles ridden of anyone in
Yeah.
the world.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Whew, that was a good story, man.
Yeah.
I like
This
this. That was
whole
a fun
podcast ended up
podcast.
kind of getting dedicated to that. We had other things we were going to talk about, but you know.
You
It's a
heard
big
it here
life event.
first. You heard it here first, guys. Wren Weichman can officially claim the title of fastest one-wheeler on the planet.
Oh my god. It does. There is a certain amount of cool that I have been feeling of like, man, I'm kind of technically one of the fastest one-wheel riders in the world now. Like, am I a
Yeah.
professional one-wheel racer now? Like, can I
mean,
say
yeah.
that?
Yes.
I don't think I can. I don't think I can technically claim that officially until it's a full-on. Everyone can officially enter and it's a fair race. Because this year's race was a bit more of a marketing stunt than it was a fair race. That's
Right,
just the
'cause-
nature of it. I'm gonna take it, like sure. But for me to really, truly earn that respect that I was craving, I have to go next year and get in. So
Yeah. That sounds
All
really
right.
cool.
Let's do it. We'll document the whole thing. You'll be able to catch it on Corridor Crew and probably on the Corridor Cuts vlog on corridordigital.com. Wren, you'll have a sponsor next year. We'll put it right here on your little jacket. We'll even
Yeah,
get you a
I'm-
jacket.
I'm gonna work on getting some sponsors. There's 3 different companies that are doing sponsors that I haven't just pursued at all. I'm pretty sure I can, if I tried to work towards it, I
You
can.
have
maybe.
one from us
Doritos, Mountain Dew, and Xbox.
and Corridor Digital.
And
And
Corridor
Corridor.
Digital. Yeah.
There you go.
Cool. Well, everybody, thanks for listening to the podcast. Ren, thanks for telling the story. That's super
Oh,
exciting.
Ren, will you use my one wheel next year?
For the tricks competition, sure.
Aye, come on. No, you're going to just.
Yeah. All right. Well, and yeah, everybody listening, corridordigital.com, go check it out. The vlogs are up and they're live. If you haven't gotten a subscription yet, please consider doing so. It helps us create some really cool stuff. That's right. We're not going to just be doing YouTube videos anymore. We're going to be doing cool things like narratives and vlogs and all the other things that are a little hard to do in the YouTube ecosystem these days, thanks to your direct support on corridordigital.com.
That's
Yeah.
right.
That's
Yeah.
right.
All righty.
Cool. Well, dudes, I can't wait to do a ride with you guys because I also have been in the woods for a week, but without my one wheel. Jake, play us a sad song as we leave for the week until the next one. Are those the same 2 chords?
No, this is a minor of the same chord, Nico.
Oh, okay.
Oh, come on, it's getting there. Wren is the best one-wheeler in the world.
God, no, don't say that. That's
Everybody else is a turd. He's the best, the very best in the world. You can slowly fade out here, Christian. Wren's the best. Sing it with me. In the
Wren the
world.
world.
I'm amongst the best in
Wren's
the
the
world.
best.
Wren's the fastest
The fastest in the
in the
world.
world.
I can hang with the fastest in the world.
And everybody else is a turd.
Slow turd. A turtle. Because they're so slow and turd-like.
That's what turtle means.